Testing, testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing.
Good morning. As I fiddle, good morning, and welcome to this worship service at the Unitarian. There we are. This worship service at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tucson. For those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Bethany Russell Lowe, and I have the great pleasure and honor of serving as minister of this congregation. Our community is striving to be as varied as the blooms of the Sonoran Desert, so whoever you are, whoever you've been, and whoever you are in the path to becoming, I invite you to bring all that you are here and now. We are a covenantal community, which means very simply that we make promises to each other about how we are together when we are together. And in this time of continuing pandemic, we are still wearing masks here in worship together and in concurrent religious education. And we do have an expectation that if you are joining us for in-person activities, that you are vaccinated, as whatever that means to you, and as vaccinated as you can be. If you're unwilling to be vaccinated, we hope that you'll join us for worship, but just hope you'll join us online on YouTube next week. I extend a special welcome to any visitors and invite you to fill out a guest information card. If you're joining us on YouTube, our administrator, Mary Weiss, will post a link to that in the chat right now. If you're here in person with us, please join us for social hour, and if you join us in that building, there's a little alcove with the Welcome Center above it. There'll be clipboards there and friendly faces to help you stay connected with us if you would like to stay connected. And we will meet for social hour right after the service. There is always coffee, tea, iced tea, lemonade, and sometimes some snacks, and of course, good company. Right after worship at 12:15 today, we are having a town hall. The board is hosting a town hall. There, you can come with any questions you have for your board, but the two specific topics of conversation are whether we will continue having masks being mandatory here in worship or whether they will become optional, so come with your input. And also, your worship associates are wanting to collect some information about how you all feel about speaking and singing Spanish in worship and how that feels and how we might do that in a respectful way if we do go forward with that. So think on that and come back here at 12:15 if you'd like to join the town hall. If you have been joining the Bible study that's been happening the past few weeks, unfortunately the facilitator is sick and so unable to make it this week or next week. So just know that will resume in 2 Sundays from now. And you've seen in some emails that this coming Monday, I'm hosting a Zoom workshop on how misconduct impacts congregational communities. If you're interested in joining, send me an email today, and I'll send you the Zoom link for that. It has been in recent emails, but it's open to everyone in the congregation. It'll be an hour and a half starting at 6 p.m. tomorrow. And also, our consultant for restorative practices, Reverend Samantha Wilson, is hosting a workshop next Saturday. If you haven't RSVP'd to that, please do that as soon as possible. And an update on our pledge campaign in case there are any stragglers out there who have not yet given their pledge. We are at $226,000, which is just fabulous, and we thank all of those who have sent their pledge in. We still have a little bit more to get to our goal. So if you've not sent your pledges in, please see Carolyn Saunders. Carolyn, can you raise your hand wherever you are? She's in the back in the blue here. Please see Carolyn Saunders, and she will help you get your pledge filled out. Today is a Question Box Sunday, which is a Unitarian Universalist tradition, which means that instead of a sermon and some other readings that are pre-selected, Jamili and I will be answering your questions. So some of you have been putting your questions in these 2 baskets up here on the stage. I encourage you to keep doing that. Put the questions on note cards and either bring them up, or Brian is going around right now and can collect them for you. If you're joining us on YouTube, you can submit your questions in the chat, and we will find them there. There will be another chance in the service. If you still haven't quite formulated your question, there'll be another chance in the service. Oh, that's a lot better. There'll be another chance in the service to submit questions, so you can keep ruminating if you need to and come up at any time to put your question in the box. We've also given you some choice in choosing your hymns this morning, and I think the hymns are selected. Perfect. So you might see a little bit of chaos around when we sing hymns. But we are going to start. Oh. We have the results. Do I have a drum roll? Perfect. Thank you. For the Beauty of the Earth, the underdog, I consider it, has won out. For our first hymn, we will be singing Spirit of Life. No surprises there. And we will be ending with Let It Be a Dance. You all surprised Brian and I ×2. So, woo. We will sing those songs together. Please continue in the spirit of worship together by turning to a neighbor, hopefully one you don't know very well, and ask them to tell you a question that's been on your mind or heart recently, If you're joining us on YouTube, you can put your answers in the chat. This week, right here in Tucson, the Bookmans in Oro Valley canceled the children's literature event because the event was to be held by drag queens. Now, I know that some of you know that the event was canceled after a local evangelical church urged its members to get involved. Then the Proud Boys joined, and after receiving multiple threats, the safety of the people, to be clear, the safety of the children, could not be assured, and so the Story Hour was canceled. Drag Story Hour Arizona, which was the sponsor of the event, posted on their website this week an explanation of how they choose the stories they choose and why they do what they do. They said that they read stories that represent LGBTQIA plus main characters and families. They read stories that center Black, Indigenous, and people of color and people of various religious traditions. They read stories that help teach young listeners and learners literacy skills. They noted that, quote, drag performers are similar to Disney and fairy tale characters because of the magic and glamour that they put into their craft. Here, too, we try to find stories and readings and words and music that represent a wide array of gender identities, sexual orientations, and family structures. Here, too, we read stories that center people of all races and all cultures. Here, too, we encourage literacy and learning and critical thinking. Here, too, we see no difference between drag queens and Disney princesses. All are whole and holy. And in a time when the rights and lives of trans and gender non-binary people are under attack, when our people are being attacked, it is important that we not only remember these things, but that we say them out loud and that we do something about it. So here are some things we can say, and I'll ask you to repeat after me so that these words can become embedded in our bodies. There is nothing wrong with what people choose to wear. There is nothing wrong with what people choose to wear. Drag queens and Disney princesses are simply performers. Simply performers. Early literacy is of utmost value. Representation in children's literature is a non-negotiable. Children's literature is a non-negotiable. All genders, all people are whole and holy. All genders, all people are whole and holy. I'll let you know that there are community efforts to host this drag story hour at another location at another time, and I will let you know when it comes so you can come and sit and listen and learn. For now, let us remember that here we are widening the circle of love and care, and that widening is hard sometimes, but it is never a threat. It is what our faith calls us to do. In the Spirit, come, let us worship together.
Good morning. My name is Brenda Lunt, and I am the worship associate today. Will everyone please join me in the chalice lighting words by Reverend Julianne Lepp. We seek our place in the world and the answers to our heart's deep questions. We seek, may our hearts be open to unexpected answers. May the light of our chalice remind us that there is a community of warmth, of wisdom, and welcoming of multiple truths. Now, if you have a chalice or candle at home, please light it as we light our chalice here in Holland.
And thank you to the 30 of you who voted on the first hymn, which is For the Beauty of the Earth, and it may take a second for us to get there, but thank you also, AV team, for being flexible. Would you, as you are able and willing, stand in body and spirit to sing For the Beauty of the Earth? For the beauty of the earth, for the splendor of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies. Source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of ear and eye, for the heart and mind's delight, for the mystic harmony, linking sense to sound and sight. Source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the wonder of each hour, of the day and of the night, hill and vale and tree and flower, sun and moon and stars of light, source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of human care, sister, brother, parent, child, for the kinship we all share, for all gentle thoughts and mild, source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. Thank you.
Our earth is strong. It can hold our pain and our joy, our love and our anger. Our shared bowl, which we use for joys and sorrows each week, is strong enough to hold the big rocks, our collective celebrations and mournings, and also the smaller stones that will be added to signify our individual joys and sorrows. Let us remember those desert people who came first to this place. We honor the Hohokam, the Yavapai, the Tono Otham, the Yaqui, and the people who no longer exist as tribal entities here in Arizona. We who live in the desert know that water is a life-sustaining and scarce resource. Let us remember those who are walking through our desert right now without access to water. We pour water from a plastic jug, similar to the ones used by those seeking greater access to water in the desert, like our ministry partner, No More Deaths. If you have a joy or sorrow to share, I invite you to go to menti.com and put in the code 51247153. If you are here in person, you're welcome to come up to the table and put a stone into the water to symbolize your joy or sorrow. These pebbles create ripples of hope.
today, we wrote, in Mentimeter today, we wrote, looks like a new interface. Thoughts? Looks like we have 8 answers waiting for us. Oh, here we go. Yay. Okay. We get them all at once today. So let's read them. Starting in the upper left-hand corner, it says, "It was a joy to spend an evening at a fabulous UUCT auction dinner." Way to go. The loss of Dr. Steve Powers from our Baha'i community, friend and colleague, scholar, and creator of education programs worldwide. Thinking of my dad who fell yesterday, prayers for speedy healing. My beloved cat is feeling better. So grateful that our church supports the trans community. Joy for the spring, joy for the flowers, joy for the growth and transitions that come with a new season. My son turns 21 today. Wow. Happy birthday, son. The pain war brings the earth is deeply on my mind lately. The humans, the animals, the trees, and other plants, and the water all suffer when humanity wars. Amen. For all of our joys, sorrows, spoken and unspoken, those that are in your hearts today, we welcome you and pray for you peace. Poet E.E. Cummings wrote, "Always a beautiful answer who asks a more beautiful question." Always a beautiful answer who asks a more beautiful question. And I hope that today we will ask more beautiful questions. Ones that challenges us, make us wonder, ones that invite us to think deeply, ones that welcome us to laughter together. These questions can be as big or as small, as general or as specific, as inconsequential, as significant as you can think of today. In this moment, I invite you to pull out that note card, that piece of paper or pen that you have, and we will take a moment of quiet reflection to think about any new questions that might be on your heart that you would like to ask. Go ahead and write on your note card. I will bring us back together in a minute. If you do not have a note card or would like another one, raise your hand and our ushers will bring those around to you. So we will take just a minute in quiet, and then we will come to your cards. If you're writing, keep writing. If something comes up to you in the next few minutes, feel free to write them down. We have another hymn. I'm curious what it's going to be.
The second hymn was less of a surprise to me. Spirit of Life was the clear winner for the middle hymn today for many of you that voted. Spirit of Life is 123 in the gray hymnals, and there are always hymnals available for people that prefer that, but the words will be on the screen here in just a minute. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me. One more time, please, all the way through. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Our reading today is from philosopher and writer Bayo Akolmolafe and is written as a letter to his daughter. He writes, "My daughter Althea, in times of trouble, such as the ones we now inhabit, what with the burning fires and broken oceans, it is customary to ask, what shall we do? What do we do about the killing of whales and the loss of Sumatran tigers? What do we do about the plumes of toxic waste embroidering the air and the virulent dots of pestilence and sickness infiltrating our pandemic streets? What do we do?" It seems a natural thing to ask, does it not, dear? It feels self-evident, obvious, and maybe even moral. However, it is quite empathically not as fundamental as it seems. Instead, the question is a political move, a risk, an imperative of centuries of training in the cosmology of the individual, a strategy that often presupposes the primacy of human intention. This is the thing with questions. They are never passive recipients or innocent containers for the answers they seek. They are sculptors of possibilities, participants in the mysterious ways the world shapes itself. Let me tell you, there are always other questions. You must learn to find them, to listen for them chirruping, buzzing, hip-hopping, bebopping, hissing, a chewing, a hemming, and blaring sounds. Slow down long enough to hear these susurrations of the other eyes. Let your ears be errant, and you just might happen upon a world more alive than our deepest hopes might convey.
Got some good questions.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah, bring them up. Put them in the basket. We will get them integrated. And I will give a disclaimer. If your question isn't read, it is not, I repeat, it is not because it's a bad question. It might be a really great question. Oh, I like that one. It might be an excellent question, and I might have put it aside to preach on it later or have Jamili preach on it
Yeah.
later.
All
Might be
summer.
just too big for an improv moment. Excuse me. Okay. I think this is for both of us. What is your favorite beach, and how soon do you get to go there? I'm guessing Howard on that one, was there? Jamili, what's your favorite beach?
I don't like beaches. Sand, sunburn, wind burn. Not beach person. Mountains. Favorite mountains.
I like beaches on lakes. I like beaches where there's like a little bit of beach, but it's mostly like I'm thinking Walden Pond because I am from Lexington, Massachusetts, where the trees kind of just fade right to the water, and there are these places. As teenagers, we knew the spot that we'd all go to get in the water easily, and there's very little beach, really dirt beach. But yeah, I'm with you. Sand is tough. I don't do sand.
And really, if you think about it, all of Tucson is a beach. We just don't have the water. So, Tucson, that's my favorite beach.
This is directed to me, but it's for both of us. How did you get your calling? You go first on this one.
Yeah, I think I told this story the last time we had the question box, and we just got to speak. It was many, many years ago when I was directing a camp in the Rocky Mountains, my favorite mountains, not beaches. And I was sitting there having a one-on-one conversation that just was beautiful, and it's it's on a settler colonial cabin in the middle of the Rocky Mountains with a person that is wonderful, and I was like, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. I just want to sit in the mountains, in the woods, and talk to people. And of course, 20 years later, here I am. But that was my first inkling.
My calling was a very visceral thing. I had grown up among us. I was raised by you, but not you. I was raised by the Unitarian Universalists, and we have a tradition of around a teen is 13, 14, 15. We ask them to write a credo and then give that credo from the pulpit usually. And I got into the pulpit that first time, and I looked out on my congregation, and my body felt different, and there was a weird yellow-green haze, and I was like, oh, this is what I'm meant to do. And there are other stories that came before that. I was the listening ear for many of my friends growing up. I was the leader in a lot of church groups. But it was that moment, I think, that things kind of hit me really hard and said, this is it right here. And other hears too. Okay, this is a two-parter. I think I'll take one, you take the other.
Okay.
What is a book that's transformed you?
I don't know that I can name one. I think the first one that I remember was Khalil Gibran's The Prophet, because I had never read a book by an Arab or an Arab American, and I felt such strong identity with that, and then what he says in there is just lovely. So I think that was the first one. Really saw myself, talk about representation. It's the first time I saw myself in literature.
The other part is this is an and/or. What is a piece of music that transformed you? Again, I could go to 100, a million pieces. The one that's coming to mind is when I was a young adult, I wasn't exactly connected to UU congregations, but I was connected to this national network of Unitarian Universalists. And we had a retreat in the woods in Kankakee, Illinois. And middle of nowhere.
Yep.
Really middle of nowhere. It took a long bus to get there. And one of the worship services, we walked down into this kind of clearing in the woods, and they'd set up a big fire, like taller than me, but a lot taller than all of us, fire. And we sang, "Come on, baby, light my fire," for the chalice lighting. And I am telling you, it was, like, you'd laugh, but it was a spiritual experience I will never forget. It was full of joy, full of wonder, and this huge burning fire was our chalice. It was, yeah. It transformed that song and that moment for me. Do you want to read this one?
Oh. Huh. Okay, so take this how you will. How do you decide how to spend your time, in parentheses, the spiritual practice?
How do I just spend?
How do you spend your time, and spiritual practice?
I love my job because it gives me a lot of freedom in some ways with how deciding how I spend my time. I get to spend my time with one of my discernment tools for spending my time is this worthy of my time? And that worthiness filter is really interesting to play with. Is that the question?
How do you decide how to spend your time? I think another useful answer, what was the name of that book? With the red, yellow, green.
Carrie Nieuwhof's?
Yeah, Carrie Nieuwhof.
At Your Best.
At Your Best. So we shared this
yeah.
book back and forth, and we're threatening to make you read it too. Yeah. Oh. Well, there you go. So read this book and then come to staff meeting and we'll talk about it.
At Your Best.
But this At Your Best, Carrie Nieuwhof, and it talks about scheduling your time based on when I read it, when you're most caffeinated, when you're the most awake, when you're the most functional in your brain space. And I rolled in yesterday morning. We had a really lovely, amazing group here yesterday morning, and it was before my green zone, and I roll in, and Reverend Bethany's like, "Good morning," and I'm like,
I was in my green zone. I was smack dab in the middle of my green zone, my happy zone.
I was not. So early morning's not my green zone. So that was actually really helpful for thinking about chunking time, is to do the things that are the hardest when you're at your best.
No. I interpret it differently. Sorry, take it back my no. I interpret it as do the things that give you the most energy when you're at your best. Do the things that sap your energy when you're at your worst.
It's probably a better way to frame it.
Because then you're
Yeah.
using your energy, right? Sorry for my no, but you're using your energy. So it's green, yellow, red zones, tracking how much energy you have over the course of the day. Carrie Nieuwhof, who's an evangelical Canadian pastor, he uses his green zone sometimes to bike and exercise because he realizes that that's the best use of his body. So it's not always like use your green zone to write your sermon for ministers, but it's how do you use your most energetic zones to do the things that will give you the most life and energy. I think it's fascinating. And then the red zones, you can, the permission to do what I like doing the least when I have the least energy has been really transformative.
I might need to reread the book.
I also might have heard what I needed to hear, so. Jamili, what are 3 things that bring you joy?
Well, I have 2 off the top of my head, Tarek and Amira. My kids bring me joy. But that seems like cheating.
No.
No? Can I name them?
Yeah.
Okay. They do. They really do. And, okay, the other easy low-hanging fruit is chocolate. So, that's easy.
Tarek, Amir, and chocolate.
Yep.
Noted. Mine is family. I'll include a big one. I've got my family, extra family here today. We're very excited. And the joy that you brings joy to you all too, darling Otis. I realized recently, I went to a collegial retreat this week and realized that I had missed the joy of being alone in a car with music choice selection. I spent 2 hours rocking out to 90s and early thousands music without anybody listening and anybody asking for snacks or anything, and it was glorious and brought me so much joy. And I think another joy, I got filled up with joy this week. At this collegial retreat, I was surrounded by other ministers, and they bring me joy. Some of you in different professions probably know the joy that comes from being with people who you don't have to explain it to. They just get it, and you can sink into that places. That gave me a lot of joy because we just laughed and laughed and laughed and cried a little bit, but mostly just we're present to each other's joy.
Yeah.
Let's do a few more and then transition.
I can answer this one real quick. So the question is, why does Jamili sometimes have a pre-recorded talk or book to share when she is here in the hall or not sometimes? And the video referenced me. So we made an intentional choice when we were transitioning back to being in person full-time to keep a very accessible online component for our folks that are still online. And so those videos translate a little bit better to our YouTube watchers than trying to huddle over me trying to read a little tiny book to children here in person. The other reality of our situation is we are oftentimes understaffed over in our nursery for the number of children we have. So if you hear me here and you know I'm on property, I am probably watching our kids and really concretely doing that work. So if you feel moved and desired to also be in our nursery, there's almost always need for us to have more adults over there in the nursery.
I'll end with 2, and you're welcome to chime in, although you chime in. What are we worshiping in these worship services? I get this question a lot, and I give the same stock answer every time, and maybe the answer doesn't work for this person. Let me see if I can get to another one, but the answer I give is that worship for me, if we root out that word, it is giving attention to what is worthy of our attention. So this is an hour where I think of like, what is worthy of our attention right now? Where can we draw our attention? So it's not worshiping. I'm using my arms to act as if I were praying down to a person or a thing. It is not that. We are not at the throne of something, but we are drawing our attention, quieting ourselves, seeing if there's something worthy of our attention. How would you use that? Or do you want me to stop using worship too?
I'm wondering what the other alternatives are. Are there other words that resonate for anybody? And I'm curious, if you have one, shout it out. What do we do if it's not worship? What do we come together for on Sunday morning? Church service. Thank you, Natasha. Other words we use? Contemplation. We do a lot of contemplation. Centering. Gathering. Collegiality. Communing. Lighting our fire. All sound like
I don't
synonyms to
disagree.
me.
You do. I think so. Or at least things we do. This is a question. The question is, why is the newsletter uninformative? Too little real information, sermon topics, speakers, bios, etc., hymns, question mark. So I'm going to answer this question from the side, which is that, and you've heard me saying this recently because I've been better at saying it recently. My internship supervisor, Sunshine Wolf, who some of you know, taught me that in order for something to be effectively communicated, you have to say it 8 different times in 8 different venues. So when we think through, I think as a church sometimes we hit 3 or 4. So communication is always going to be an issue in all churches and all congregations and all communities, is how do we communicate? Let's see, what are the communication vehicles? Okay, so we named the newsletter here. What are other communication vehicles we have that we use in this community actively? Email. Ugh. Website, okay. Announcements from the pulpit, which is different than word of mouth, perhaps. There's 5. Are there 3 more? Telephone. Signs. So not everything can be all 7 of those, right? Not everything can be called or done those things. We could aim for it. We can do that thing. I'll use this space because we said website. I know Thomas is here. Maybe he's over there. Thomas Hatfield has been, and Frank Valdez and Sam Meyer and others of us have done an excellent job of getting our website to be a place where you can actually see all that information. So that now and in the future will be a place where it's more accessible, easy to understand what's going on, and just a hat tip to that good work that's been put into that.
Yep.
Let's do something else and then come back.
Okay.
Once upon a time, back in the before times, most folks used the offering plate to fulfill their pledges for financial support. Nowadays, lots of folks click on the church websites or set up automatic transfers from their checking account. Some still write a monthly check, paying their church bill along with the others. But passing the offering plate was never just a practical exercise. It has and always been a ritual. Even if your pledge is paid up, you may find it worthwhile for you to bring even just $1 or a quarter to drop into the plate as a ritual reminder of that form of love we call generosity. Let it be a reminder that after meeting our obligations to ourselves and our households and the communities to which we belong and are committed, we must still keep our capacity to give. The practice of giving, until it is second nature and first response, helps bring forth the realm of love. The offering will now be given and gratefully received to support the life and work of our congregation. If you are joining us on live stream, you can send a check to the church office or give online at uuctucson.org/donate or text 833-361-5796. If you are here in person, the ushers will come around now with the offering baskets to collect your generosity.
Let's ping pong these ones.
Okay.
Because we don't, surprise, surprise, we've talked a lot. You go first.
What is the meaning of life? 42 is one answer. Yeah.
Oh, we're going quick. If God is good, why is there cruelty in the world? I think God is good in the world because there is cruelty in the world. There has to be a good God if you believe God to be that way. The only God I could ever come close to believing in or trusting in would be a good God because there is a presence of cruelty. Another way I answer this, do you want to go?
Well, I think that's the answer of what is the meaning of life, is reducing cruelty.
Sure.
doing what we can to make that happen. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
Why is time spent in nature rejuvenating?
You.
Oh, I get to answer that one. Actually, I just read a book, surprisingly enough, and it talked about our our animal brain, right, our lizard brain, and how regulating it is to do things that are like routine activity, like walking, something that you can do without thinking about, and that nature sounds. There's actually a reason why being in nature and being around nature is rejuvenating for us. Beyond that, I think we all just feel connected there. We see something bigger than ourselves, and we experience the larger world than ourselves. But there's science too.
How can our church safely speak more boldly in support of trans folks in this community? Safely and boldly? I don't know that in this moment those two things could be tied together. I think that living our faith out in the world and speaking that out in the world is a risk. The boldness of that risk can take out the safety, but I still think it's important. It is vital that we do that. I would push on the safely, though. Why do we need it to be safe, and what does safety mean for us, and whose safety are we talking about in that question?
So are we offering to host Drag Story Hour?
To be determined. I would offer, but are we the right place? And I would ask that question of the directly impacted communities and of our board and leadership, because we recognize that, and Drag Story Hour is just one example, and also drawing a distinction between trans folks and drag queens, two absolutely different communities and people, right? Just naming that. But if we're talking about Drag Story Hour, yeah, I think we could. I think we should. And there's a risk there that I think we would have to take on as a community and understand how we would respond to in a way that is living our values and upholding our aspirations.
How can we turn our society more toward love, compassion, and acceptance of others? Trans people, immigrants, people of various races and ethnicities, everyone. How can we turn our society more towards love, compassion, and acceptance of others? Yeah, I think that's the question you've been coming back to several times today, is how do we live our values in the world? And that's it. That's what we can do. We can go and live our values in the world in big ways and small ways, and that will turn. You have a different answer?
I think for how bold we are as Unitarian Universalists, we are often really shy. For those of you who, yeah. For those of you at home, the planes are going on overhead, and there was some loud noise. For how bold we are as Unitarian Universalists, we are really shy about saying that we're Unitarian Universalists outside of our church communities. We are so shy about it. Many of us are progressive or Democrat, and will hold those labels boldly. Many of us. So I wondered, my question to this is what is holding us back from claiming our faith and our values out in the world explicitly and directly and really specifically as Unitarian Universalists? Because I think that's holding us back from trying to bring what we do here out into the world, or trying to bring what we're trying to do here out in the world. Another answer to this is we practice it better here. We really intentionally focus on love, compassion, and acceptance of others in this place, and there's still a lot of work we can do so that then we bring it out into the world. What can we do about homelessness in our community? Yeah, this comes up a lot, all the time. Again, I'm going to sideways answer this and say, how many homeless people have we asked what they need? How many homeless folks on our campus or unhoused folks on our campus have you approached and said, hey, what do you really need? Because my experience is folks know where food pantries are, they know where the clothing banks are, they know where safe camping spots are, and those aren't actually things they need. They know that mental health care in our country is inadequate. So what do folks who are unhoused actually need, and when did we most recently ask? And then I think we can answer that question. When I've asked folks that, sometimes it's, I just need you to smile at me. I need you to talk to me. I need you to not repel. I need you to not assume. I need money to get food. I need safe places where I can be, right? Those are things we can do. But I think the question before this question is asking directly impacted folks what they need. These are two in the same for both of us. We'll do two more that are kind of related. The question is, how can we attract more young people to our church? And then there's a related question, why are young people not interested in church? Which are two different questions, but related. You want to go first?
Yeah, come on April 30th. That's what I'm talking about.
Or Mother's Day, turns out.
Mother's
That's what I'm
Day.
speaking on Mother's Day.
Oh. Answer that one hard.
I told my colleagues this week when we were discussing kind of this, that my experience is that it is not just apathy or uninterest. We as a culture have lost trust in the institution of church. And we Unitarian Universalists are included in that loss of trust. We have, so when we look at the decline, geeking out moment, when you look at the decline of people attendance at church, it rapidly started declining. We often trace it to the '08 crash, when kind of the financial future of our country and our families and individuals and congregations kind of fell out from under it, and it was a wake-up call. Something that happened just before that was the unveiling of widespread sexual abuse of children in the Catholic Church. And I don't think that's a mistake. I think that that also contributed to this lack of trust. There are planes going overhead if you're on YouTube. Contributed to a lack of trust in the institution of church and the leaders of church, in the ability of church to be who they say they are. Something to chew on.
Can I also ask the question before that one? What are we doing that's attractive to young people? What are we offering? Who are we that makes our space a place that young people, whether young adults, children, families, want to be at? And how do we ask that question and get at that? What change is asked of us in order to be a place that's welcoming for those populations?
Right. I had a colleague who only accepted a job at a church when they could assure that they would have childcare at every single meeting. Every single meeting that met, they were assured childcare, and she didn't have to ask for it. That was really key in this. We make a commitment to trying to seek out childcare at every event, but people still have to ask for it. There's not an assumption that children will be present in our space, in our meetings, that parents will be present at our meetings, unless we have childcare available. What is the future of organized religion? And related to this, what will a UU service look like 10 years from now, 20 years? More planes if you're on YouTube. We're going to pause for a sec. Different. Different is my answer.
And I think the exciting thing is we get to figure that out together, right? What does it look like? We get to figure that out. And who's ever here in 10 years from now gets to help us figure that out.
Can I also throw an answer in as a transition whenever the transition is about to happen? Because
Let me praise on Jamelia a little bit, and then let's transition. Jamelia, something you're really good at reminding me about is that, because this question, it's even stuck in the now of UU services, which I assume they mean what we're doing right now, the 10:30 to 11:30 hour on Sunday morning. Something Jamelia is much better at reminding me about than I am reminding myself is that church is more than this hour on Sunday morning. And I think 10, 20 years from now, it will be even less about this. So what does that mean? There's an intention. There's a purposefulness in what we are doing here, and this is connected, I think, to the younger people question. This might become less important. Maybe we have one worship service that happens once a month, and the other Sundays or the other days during the week, we are doing work out in the world. We are providing support for the people. We are doing adult religious education and children's religious education sometime other than Sunday mornings. That's another answer I have to that.
And 10 years from now, the next UU hymnal will not be hardbound. It will be digital and distributed evenly across all congregations and all sizes, which is something that the pandemic is sort of rushing us towards. There's a hymn competition this summer. If you've got a song in your back pocket and you want to submit, send it my way, or I'll help you find a place for it. Let It Be a Dance is our last song today. If you are able and willing, would you rise and sing Let It Be a Dance? Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need. To reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Everybody turn and spin. Let your body learn to bend. And like a willow with the wind, let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. A child is born and the old must die. A time for joy, a time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Morning star comes out at night. Without the dark there is no light. If nothing's wrong, then nothing's right. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Let the sun shine, let it rain. Share the laughter, bear the pain. And round we go again. Let it be a dance. Thanks.
Will you please join me in saying our words of chalice extinguishing from Reverend Michael A. Schuler? Cherish your doubts, for doubt is the servant of truth. Question your convictions, for beliefs too tightly held strangle the mind and its natural wisdom. Suspect all certitudes, for the world whirls on, nothing abides. Yet in our inner rooms, full of doubt, inquiry, and suspicion, let a corner be reserved for trust. For without trust, there is no space for communities to gather or for friendships to be forged. Indeed, this is a small corner where we connect and reconnect with one another.
like I said, all of you, go get coffee, come back for the town hall. It's an important one.